This is Dr. Sheldon L. Akins, host of the Leading Equity Podcast and a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Just like the show you're listening to right now, the opinions expressed are those of each individual host. For more great podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
Coming up on episode number 135 of the House of EdTech podcast, I've got some awesome summer reading recommendations for all you progressive teachers. I've got my EdTech thought where we're going to be popping bubbles. And I've got a great recommendation that's going to help you do a whole lot more with PDF files. Of course, I've got the House of EdTech VIP and another installment of Just Give It a Try. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Well, hello again. Thank you for making House of EdTech part of your anytime, anywhere professional development on the go. A little podcast PD for you today, tonight, this morning. I don't know what time it is when you listen, but thank you for checking this out. If this is your first episode of the podcast, well, the good news is this is going to be a good episode. Another piece of good news is that you only have 134 previous episodes to catch up on. But as I record this, we're getting ready to either be on summer vacation or you are already on summer vacation. And if you're a longtime listener, welcome back for hopefully the 135th time. I'm excited today. I'm recording this on a beautiful morning here in New Jersey, and I have a lot of things to say and share with you in this episode. First and foremost, some announcements. So first I want to hit on postcards. I didn't mention this in the last episode, 134, but I did mention it in 133. I would love to know what you're doing this summer. Consider sending me a postcard and sharing your travels with me, or if you just want to share a postcard from your part of the world, I would love to know where you listen from. And I'll read them out on the show, so if you include a nice message, I'll be happy to share that in my podcast episodes throughout the summer. Now, to get a postcard to me, you need to send it to me, Chris Nessie, and my address is 205 McDermott Road, Neptune, New Jersey, 07753. And as the postcards start flying in, I will read them in future episodes this summer, and I'm looking forward to getting to learn more about you and what you're up to this summer. Where are you traveling to? Or again, what's going on in your part of this great big world? ISTE 2019 is coming up very quickly. Now, this is my last episode that I'm releasing before ISTE 2019 in Philadelphia, and I can't wait to spend the day in Philly on June 23rd. That's Sunday, June 23rd, and I'll be attending/hosting the Education Podcast Network House of EdTech Meetup at 6 p.m. at Pat's King of Steaks. If you're traveling to Philly for ISTE, or if you are in that general vicinity and you want to come out and meet me and some of the other awesome people who listen to podcasts and create education podcasts, many of which will be from the Education Podcast Network, come on out. I would certainly love to meet you, shake your hand. And again, if you are wearing a t-shirt for the House of EdTech or Podcast PD, or you have swag from the Education Podcast Network, I will buy your cheesesteak. So I look forward to seeing you out on Sunday, June 23rd at ISTE, where I will be all day because I still have school and I'm in school until Wednesday, June 26th. So the credentials I secured for ISTE, I cannot use but on Sunday, June 23rd. And I will be at the Pennsylvania Convention Center in Philly all day Sunday up until I go to Pat's King Estates at 6 o'clock, where I will have a podcast station set up in the, I guess it's still called the Bloggers Cafe, but I will be taking that over, and I'll be doing some live streaming. I'll be doing some recording. And if you're going to be at ISTE, go to the Bloggers Cafe sometime during the day on Sunday, June 23rd. And I will have a huge banner that says House of Ed Tech, and I'll be there. Come meet me. I want to meet you, and we can record. You can check out some podcast gear that I will have set up. Ask me anything you want. And I look forward to meeting you out at ISTE on Sunday, June 23rd. At the end of each episode, I take time to shout out all of my awesome supporters. And if you don't regularly listen all the way through, or maybe you start the episodes but you don't get all the way to the end, you might not be aware of the awesome supporter community that exists around this podcast. This is for people who, like you, want to help make the podcast go and get value from the content and conversations that I create, share, and put out into the world. You can contribute a one-time donation or on a per-episode basis. There are multiple levels of support, and you would be helping to make the House of EdTech go. Now, a couple of things with this. Any new awesome supporter, effective immediately, any new awesome supporter at any level that comes on board between June 16th, 2019 and September 1st, 2019, you will get an exclusive House of EdTech laptop sticker as a thank you. Also, any new awesome supporters at the $5 per episode level or higher will receive an exclusive, one-of-a-kind House of EdTech t-shirt that I have not made available anywhere else. So you only get this t-shirt if you become an awesome supporter at the $5 level or higher. And at the $10 per episode level, you will also get access to a 1-hour group coaching call with me once per month, and this reward is limited to just 10 people at any one time. So you're going to want to get in on this, because the calls give you direct access to me and the other people, where we will talk for an hour on a probably Zoom or Google Hangout, and I'll record them, where we will talk about your ed tech needs and specific questions and ideas, and I will support you. And you can do that for $10 per episode, so $20 a month gives you a 1-hour group coaching call, you get the laptop sticker, and you get the exclusive House of EdTech t-shirt, only available for awesome supporters. When you are ready to support this podcast in this fashion, all you need to do is go over to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and you will be able to support a show that you love and enjoy. And for this episode's House of EdTech Thought, I have titled it, Get Out of Your Bubble. It's a great big world we live in, full of shine, sparkle, and wonder. As an educator, it's your duty to be at your best when you're uncomfortable. Don't settle for the easy, well-worn path through your career. Take the road less traveled and blaze new trails. We have all told students to do this, or we've heard someone tell us to tell students to do this. Living our lives and taking risks are the greatest lessons and exemplars that we can provide students. Telling your students to create something for a worldwide, authentic audience would mean so much more if you were also creating and putting yourself out there as well for a worldwide audience. We don't expect students to be perfect, and we shouldn't hold ourselves to the same standard. If you've ever told a student to fail forward and experience a first attempt in learning, when was the last time, I ask you now, when was the last time that you failed forward and you took that difficult first step? The things we say and the things we do matter for our students. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I get it, though. The school year can be a challenging time to try new things, and the fear of failure can certainly loom large. But you're either on summer vacation or you will be very shortly, and I encourage you, just as I encourage myself, to try something new this summer. You'd even be surprised how something you think isn't related to education can find its way into your classroom or school come the next school year or many school years from now. I'm looking forward to trying some new things this summer, and I'm even more excited that I'm going to share them with you in the coming weeks and months. I look forward to you sharing with me what you're doing too, as you get out of your bubble. And that's my EdTech thought. And now let's begin the featured content for this episode. The content I'm about to share with you is from a blog post I recently came across on teachthought.com, authored by my pal and fellow podcaster, Jesse Lubinsky from New York. Jesse is the co-host of the Partial Credit podcast, which I produce, and he is also the Chief Learning Officer for Ready Learner One LLC, which is an educational solutions provider for emergent technologies. You can find Jesse on Twitter at jlubinsky, Lubinsky, and you can learn more about his work at jesselubinsky.com. And of course, this will all be in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/135. But this blog post is titled From Inquiry to Technology, a reading list for progressive teachers. So Jesse has assembled a list of books that would certainly be valuable to any progressive educator here in 2019. And if you're listening to this after, these are certainly some great books to check out. So I talked with Jesse, and I'm going to share his blog post here for you right now. So the first book on Jesse's list is titled Drawn to Teach, an illustrated guide to transforming your teaching by Josh Stumpenhorst and Trevor Guthke. Everything I'm about to share are Jesse's words, so let me become a thespian, and I will become Jesse Lubinsky. When I heard that Josh Stumpenhorst's newest book was a graphic novel on education, the comic book geek in me couldn't pre-order it fast enough. Alternating between traditional text and illustrations from Trevor Guthke, Stumpenhorst tackles the core values of great teaching and examines the key characteristics that all top educators share. Covering topics such as relationships, motivation, and innovation, each chapter highlights problems teachers encounter and provides solutions to address them. One particularly nice touch is the addition of the, quote, this will happen, end quote, quick hits between chapters, which cover topics from the funny, say bodily functions, to the serious, suicide, with strategies to help educators navigate tricky waters in education. Book number 2, Inquiry Mindset, Nurturing the Dreams, Wonders, and Curiosities of Our Youngest Learners by Trevor McKenzie and Rebecca Bathurst Hunt. A follow-up to the awesome dive into inquiry, Trevor McKenzie returns, along with Rebecca Bathurst Hunt, to further explore concepts from his first book with an emphasis on how to approach inquiry in an elementary school setting. Recognizing that there is a need for bridging the gap between curriculum and curiosity, the authors share actual practices from their classrooms to give educators insight on how to develop an inquiry mindset with students. Elementary teachers looking to transform their teaching while empowering their students should definitely give this book a shot. Next up, this is one of the brand new books here in the world of education, and it is from my buddy Matt Miller. It's called Don't Ditch That Tech, Differentiated Instruction in a Digital World by Matt Miller, Nate Ridgway, and Angela Ridgway. Matt Miller is back. Well, technically he didn't go away, but his latest release plays with the title of his hugely successful Ditch series, Ditch That Textbook and Ditch That Homework, by stating, don't ditch that tech. In a guide centered around teachers, Miller and his co-authors, Nate and Angela Ridgway, share tips and strategies for using technology to transform classrooms. Unlike many texts that focus on the theory behind instructional shifts, this book provides readers with tons of examples and methods on exactly how to do it while differentiating, so that whether you're a tech novice or a guru, you can reap the benefits of their suggestions. Next up is Relentless, Changing Lives by Disrupting the Educational Norm by Hamish Brewer. Hamish Brewer is one of the most remarkable stories in education. Hailing from New Zealand, Hamish overcame an extremely rough upbringing to become a nationally renowned speaker and an award-winning administrator who specializes in turning around even the most struggling schools. In his new book, Relentless, Brewer, widely known as the tattooed skateboarding principal, shares his inspirational story and provides educators with strategies for school improvement that can change the educational experience for teachers and students alike. As a quick side note, every book that I have mentioned and will mention as we talk about some great books to read this summer or anytime, you'll be able to go out to chrisnessy.com/135, and there will be links to all of these books in the show notes. And if you happen to make a purchase, I would actually get a little piece of the pie because there will all be links to purchase the books on Amazon. And anytime you visit my show notes and there's a link to something that I use or recommend, certainly that little bit of money helps make the show go as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case you were looking for more incentive to help the podcast go. Next up, we have Teaching Land, a teacher's survival guide to the classroom apocalypse by Amanda Fox and Mary Ellen Weeks. Any book that can take a zombie theme and apply it to the education world deserves our attention. In Teaching Land, Amanda Fox and Mary Ellen Weeks provide readers with a survival guide on navigating the treacherous classroom apocalypse that turns our students into, quote-unquote, the sitting dead. On top of featuring some incredibly helpful practices for educators, the book also contains unique augmented reality content which, through the use of a mobile device, makes the pages come alive. Teaching Land has the potential to allow educators to find the cure and resurrect real learning in your school. Next up, we have Educated by Design, Designing the Space to Experiment, Explore, and Extract Your Creative Potential by Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, better known in education circles as the Tech Rabbi, shines in his first book, Educated by Design, sharing tips based on his experience in the education and design worlds that allow teachers to release the creativity within students as well as themselves. Focusing on ideas like empathy and creativity as a mindset, Cohen challenges readers to complete activities in the book that are designed to help maximize their own potential. Next up, we have Empower Our Girls, Opening the Door for Girls to Achieve More by Lynn Mara Colon and Adam Welcome. In their new book, Empower Our Girls, Lynn Mara Colon and Adam Welcome go beyond the message of girl power to give practical changes that educators need to implement in order to allow girls to reach beyond the traditional limits set for them. This book is a must-read for anyone who believes that part of their personal mission is to help girls receive every opportunity they need in order to become powerful, confident women. Next up, we have Tech with Heart, Leveraging Technology to Empower Student Voice, Ease Anxiety, and Create Compassionate Classrooms by Stacey Roshan. Stacey is someone that Jessie has followed on social media for quite some time, as her work with Flipped Classroom for mathematics was some of the best around. In her book, Tech with Heart, she shares her own personal journey through education, both as a student and teacher. Through her story, teachers learn how to enhance student voice, help ease anxiety, and create a more inclusive classroom environment. As someone who spent years in the math classroom, Jessie believes the tips and strategies provided by Roshan are invaluable, particularly to those teachers looking for a way to expand beyond the scope of what they are currently doing with educational technology. And next up, we have Wanderlust Edu, An Educator's Guide to Innovation, Change, and Adventure by Micah Shippey. Based on his keynote talk of the same title, Micah Shippey's Wanderlust Edu is a book about change. Shippey revisits our core purposes for doing what we do as educators by taking us on a journey to learn about what lies ahead. Wanderlust Edu is a great read for teachers, coaches, and administrators since it focuses on the most important aspect of change, the people in schools who form innovative cultures. This book is for anyone seeking to explore how an understanding of self, innovation, and culture can inform and direct the way we innovate and lead change in education. Wanderlust Edu is an indispensable resource for navigating our uncertain future. As an added bonus, Jesse and Donnie Piercy and Jeff Heil, the hosts of Partial Credit, they recently had Micah on their show, and I will link to that episode of their podcast in the show notes for this episode. And again, that'll be out at chrisnessy.com/135. And our last book on the list, as assembled by Jesse Lubinsky, is Hacking Questions, 11 Answers That Create a Culture of Inquiry in Your Classroom. It's part of the Hack Learning series, and the author is Connie Hamilton, widely known as the questioning guru. While most educators know that questioning is an important part of the learning process, this book offers practical tips and strategies for asking better questions and preventing "I don't know" from becoming a dead end in your classroom. If you're a believer that asking better questions can help build a classroom culture of inquiry, then this should be at the top of your reading list. So once again, to recap this list, we have some awesome books, and again, they are Drawn to Teach, an illustrated guide to transforming your teaching by Josh Stumpenhorst and Trevor Gufke. Inquiry Mindset, Nurturing the Dreams, Wonders, and Curiosities of Our Youngest Learners by Trevor McKenzie and Rebecca Bathurst Hunt. Don't Ditch That Tech, Differentiated Instruction in a Digital World by Matt Miller and Nate and Angela Ridgway. Relentless, Changing Lives by Disrupting the Educational Norm by Hamish Brewer. Teaching Land, A Teacher's Survival Guide to the Classroom Apocalypse by Amanda Fox and Mary Ellen Weeks. Educated by Design, Designing the Space to Experiment, Explore, and Extract Your Creative Potential by the Tech Rabbi Michael Cohen. Empower Our Girls, Opening the Door for Girls to Achieve More by Lynn Mara Colon and Adam Welcome. Tech with Heart, Leveraging Technology to Empower Student Voice, Ease Anxiety, and Create Compassionate Classrooms by Stacy Roshan. Wanderlust Edu, An Educator's Guide to Innovation, Change, and Adventure by Micah Shippey. And the final book, Hacking Questions, 11 Answers That Create a Culture of Inquiry in Your Classroom by Connie Hamilton. Huge shout out to Jesse Lubinsky for assembling this list, and an even bigger thanks for allowing me to share his list here on the House of EdTech podcast. Again, there will be links to all of these books where you can purchase them out on Amazon if you head out to the show notes at chrisnessy.com/135. And if you're not subscribed to the Partial Credit podcast, you got to get on that. Head over to their website, partial.credit, and make sure you also give Jesse Lubinsky a follow on Twitter. He is at J Lubinsky. And again, that'll all be in the show notes for this episode. All right, we just gave you a whole bunch of book recommendations, but most often you come to this podcast for an EdTech recommendation. And here it is for this episode. Today I want to recommend PDF Candy. That's right, PDF Candy. PDF Candy provides users with absolutely free online and offline tools for working with PDF files, like converting, splitting, merging, rotating, and a whole lot more. PDF Candy is created by the Ice Cream Apps team, which means proven reliability and high quality for processing PDF files. All the services are provided at no cost and are ad-free. All tools are very easy to use, and you can always upload files from Dropbox or Google Drive, or simply drag and drop them from your desktop into the browser. Each tool can be added to a favorites area for faster access from the index page of the PDF Candy website. They also have a version of their software that you can download on Windows machines, but it's going to be most easy to use it on the website, which is pdfcandy.com. And that's my House of EdTech recommendation. And now it's time for another installment of the Just Give It a Try segment. If this is your first time here in this segment, Just Give It a Try is something I say at the end of every episode, and I've created a little area of the podcast where I want you to share your stories about things that you tried in your classroom with education technology. It could be something that was successful. It could be something that totally didn't work. but I'd love you to share your story, and here's a place in the episode where I share that with all of you. The latest contribution comes from Brian Carpenter. He is at Brian Carr on Twitter, and that's Brian, BRYONCAR on Twitter. And take it away, Brian. What did you just recently try?
Hi, Chris and House of Ed Tech. This is Brian Carpenter at Brian Carr on Twitter, BRYONCAR on Twitter. Anyhow, I want to let you know something that I tried in my classroom a couple months ago. We were doing student presentations, actually demo slam style, where they had to get up and present a web tool. But that's not the point. The point was about peer feedback and getting students to give feedback to each other. And I created a Google form where the first question in the Google form was the student's name and their presentation name. And for the validation for that, they were only allowed to choose one of those names so that it could get recorded as the peer evaluation for that student. They went through and had to evaluate them in a grid for presentation speed, content, other various things. 2 wishes and a star were the longer feedback as text, and then they would press submit. For the next student that came up, they would just resubmit the form or submit the form again and choose the next student down on the list, therefore generating for me a spreadsheet with all of their response in the spreadsheet. So I thought this was a great idea, a way to curate and collect all of the information. I could sort it and then I could share it. The challenge that came was when I had to share it, and how did I do that? I am not familiar very much with Autocrat and mail merge. So what I did was I created a brand new tab in the Google Sheet, the response sheet for each student, and copied and pasted the content for that student into those, and then shared each of those new spreadsheets with the students individually by email. So if anybody has a way that I could take a spreadsheet that has all of the different student data sorted and then could possibly do a mail merge, I'd like to learn that. So thanks. There's my let's try it. And I did, and it went well, and then it failed at the end. But the students learned, I learned, and that's where we're at. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Brian, again, thank you for sending that in. And since you had sent this in, I connected with Brian on Twitter, and then time got away from me. So Brian, I did not forget about you. Let's get together on a Google Hangout or Skype or Zoom or something, and I'm going to show you how to use Autocrat and basically work that all out for you. If you want to beat me to the punch and you want to share something with Brian on Twitter, again, he is at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR on Twitter, and you can share with him your favorite mail merge resources and tools, and I will also connect with Brian as well. As for the Just Give It a Try segment, if you want to contribute your story of something you tried that worked or failed, it doesn't matter to me, then go to chrisnessy.com/flipgrid and choose the Just Give It a Try grid. Brian's is the last one I have, so certainly there's opportunity for you to submit your story, and it can get on the podcast as soon as episode 136. And now it's time for the House of Ed Tech VIP, and this episode is being released on June 16th, 2019. Whether or not you listen to it today or not, it is Father's Day 2019. So if you are a dad in education, you are a House of Ed Tech VIP. And of course, I'd like to give a special shout out to my own father, John Nessie, the original Mr. Nessie. And without my dad, I would not be a teacher. He's a high school math teacher, and his career started back in the 70s. And then I was born in 1981, and he had to leave education, leave what he loved, only to return back to it in the early 2000s. And since he returned to teaching, he has been at Marlboro High School in Monmouth County, New Jersey. And again, he's my biggest coach, one of my biggest fans, and he has supported me. Whether or not I wanted advice or thought I needed it, he's always been there for me. If you're relatively new to the podcast, my dad has been a guest twice on the show, both in episode 100, where we really get into his background, and that episode is literally titled My Inspiration, John Nessie. You could find that at chrisnessie.com/100. And he came back 8 episodes later to talk about block scheduling in ed tech. And again, that's episode 108 out at chrisnessie.com/108. Just recently, as in just a few days before I'm recording this, my dad was honored by Marlboro High School. He received the Lifetime Achievement Award. No, he didn't die. No, he's not retiring, but he was honored by his peers and administrators with the 2019 Lifetime Achievement Award. And we got to attend a great dinner. My mom was there, my brother, his wife, and I got to bring Miles with me. And it was just a great night. And to hear so many of his peers speak words about him that I've known for 38 years, both as his son and having seen him teach and learned so many things from him, it was just really great to see. So thank you to you if you're a dad and all the great things you're doing. And thank you specifically to my own dad, John Nessie, for everything he's done and will continue to do for me. Thanks, Dad. I love you. Thank you for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. It has been a joy and a pleasure to create episode 135 for you. Thanks again to Jesse Lubinsky and Brian Carpenter for contributing to this episode. I really appreciate it. And the links to everything that Jesse wrote up and shared are going to be out in the show notes at chrisnessie.com/135, where you can keep the conversation going. You can connect with me, send me a message, all those wonderful things. If we're not connected on Twitter, I am at Mr. Nessie on Twitter. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, the most important thing that you can do is to tell somebody else about the podcast. Later this summer, Apple Podcasts is going to be changing the categories, and it might be more difficult for people to discover the podcast through the new Apple Podcasts app. So I need you to start talking up the podcast to people who you think will find it valuable. If that's face-to-face, awesome. If it's on social media, share hashtag House of EdTech or tag it at House of EdTech or tag me at Mr. Nessie. Tag all of the things that relate to the podcast on Instagram, on Twitter, and start talking this podcast up. Let's see how many tweets we can get before the next episode. Now, you can also, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, you could become an awesome supporter of the House of EdTech podcast. Special thanks to all of my current awesome supporters. That includes Anthony Arnault from the New Teacher podcast out at newteacher.org, Eric Kurtz from the Control-Alt-Achieve podcast, find it at controlaltachieve.com, Dan Gallagher from gallaghertech.edublogs.org, Carlos Garza, Mr. G from the Aced Tech podcast, you can find that at aced.tech, and Peggy George from Classroom 2.0, the Jen Giffen from Shooks and Giff the podcast, find it at bit.ly/. Also, thank you to Jeff Herb from InstructionalTechTalk.com, Mike Messner at TeacherMike72 on Twitter, JP Prezavento from the Bits and Bytes of Education podcast, find it at jpprez.com, and make sure you check out a recent episode of Podcast PD, where JP is a guest with Stacy Lindes, AJ Bianco, and myself. That is episode 54 of Podcast PD. And special thanks to Lynn Smargis at Lynn Smargis on Twitter, Scott Titmus, SD Titmus on Twitter, and Kyle Wilcox at Level Up Ed Tech on Twitter. Thanks for all your support, and you can go to chrisnessie.com/awesome to do that. Next episode is 136, coming at you July 7th, 2019. Until next time, thank you for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.